At a downtown bank, a black man dressed simply walked in holding a check worth millions of dollars. The manager sneered, called it fake, then set it on fire right there in the lobby before dozens of eyes and a live stream audience. The crowd cheered, clapping in approval. But just minutes later, the truth came out and left everyone stunned. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. It was Tuesday afternoon, 2:47 p.m., when the marble lobby of Heritage Trust Bank in downtown St. Louis filled with the smell of burning paper. The silver lighter in Philip Harrington's manicured hand sparked and the flame touched the corner of a check worth more than $2 million. "Watch closely," he announced, his voice carrying across the lobby like a stage actor's. "This is what happens to fake money." The check curled, blackened, and quickly collapsed into fire. Philip held it high for everyone to see, a proud grin stretching his clean-shaven face, before dropping the burning paper onto the polished floor. He ground his Italian leather shoe into the ashes, twisting slowly, keeping his eyes locked on the man who had brought it in. Aaron Brooks stood still, his hands loose at his sides. He was 45, wearing worn jeans and a gray hoodie that hung loosely over his shoulders. His sneakers were white but scuffed, and now the ashes of the burned check clung to the edges. He didn't blink when Philip pressed the ashes deeper into the marble with his heel. This morning, Aaron Brooks flew in from Atlanta, carrying only a worn leather wallet and a first-class boarding pass tucked inside his jacket. He was on his way to an afternoon board meeting across the city, but first he needed to deposit a quarterly dividend check that couldn't wait. The downtown branch was all too familiar to him, far too familiar, and Philip Harrington, the manager, was the one he met at the counter. "Problem solved," Philip said, dusting his hands together as if he had cleaned up garbage. The crowd around them shifted. A young blonde woman near the teller line lifted her phone, whispering into her live stream, "Oh my God, he's burning it. He's actually burning it. Savage." Her viewer count jumped on the screen, 47, 156, 312. A security guard, broad-shouldered with a clipped radio at his belt, stepped closer. His tone was firm but polite. "Sir, I'll need you to leave the premises." But Aaron didn't move. He kept his face calm, almost expressionless, as if he hadn't just watched over $2 million vanish in smoke. Inside, though, his chest tightened. He felt the heat of humiliation crawling up his neck, the eyes of strangers boring into him, the invisible weight of judgment pressing harder than the guard's voice. His instinct screamed to shout, to protest, to snatch back the ashes and throw them in Philip's face. But another instinct, a colder, stronger one, told him to wait. Philip smirked. "Look at him. Not even a word. You walk in here dressed from Goodwill, waving around a check bigger than most people make in their lives, and you thought we'd believe you. Not in my branch." He nudged the ashes again with his shoe, scattering fragments across the shining floor. Aaron inhaled slowly, the acrid smell of burnt paper mixed with the expensive cologne radiating from Philip's suit. He glanced at the digital clock on the far wall, 2:48 p.m. 12 minutes until his meeting. He couldn't afford to lose control now. Behind Philip, assistant manager Sandra Lee shifted nervously. She was in her 30s, her dark hair tied back, her eyes darting between the growing crowd and Aaron's composed face. "Philip," she said carefully, "maybe we should." "Quiet, Sandra," Philip snapped, without even turning. His voice was sharp, his eyes locked on Aaron. "Sir, tell us your real name, and don't give me another fake identity to match that worthless check." The blonde woman tilted her phone, catching both the ashes and Aaron's calm expression. Her screen lit up with comments. "He burned it right there. Total boss move. This is trending." Philip laughed as he kicked the ashes again. "You see this? Fraud destroyed right in front of everyone." An older woman in a Chanel suit, seated near the investment desk, clapped her hands softly. "Bravo, Philip, that's how you handle their kind. Burn first, ask questions later." Aaron's jaw tensed. He wanted to answer, to point out that his check was as real as the walls around them, but he could feel the hostility in the room. Every glance, every whispered comment, every smirk was telling him the same thing. "You don't belong here." He slipped one hand toward his jacket pocket, hesitated, then let it fall back. If he reached too quickly, the guard would think he was resisting. If he spoke too strongly, the crowd would label him a liar. He forced his breath steady, even while anger boiled inside. The guard's radio crackled. "Yeah, we've got a possible fraud suspect here," the guard said into it, his eyes still on Aaron. Manager destroyed the fake check. Requesting backup, Philip spotted Aaron's wallet peeking from his pocket. In a swift move he snatched it. Well, he held it up like a trophy. Stolen cards, too. He flipped it open, fanning the credit cards for the crowd to see. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've caught the whole package." Aaron's voice was low but clear. "Mr. Harrington, I'd like my wallet back. When the police arrive, you can explain to them how you got it." Philip laughed loudly, slipping the wallet into his suit jacket. "You'll explain your scam, not me." From the ATM line, a teenager with purple hair lifted her phone. "Bank manager just burned a check. Uploading now," she muttered. Her fingers flew across the screen. The caption read, "Manager versus Scammer. Fire beats fraud." Aaron looked again at the clock. 2:52 p.m. His jaw tightened. 10 minutes left. The faint crack in his composure showed for the first time, but only for a second. "Oh, what's wrong?" Philip taunted. "Running late for your next scam." The crowd murmured. A man in a Brooks Brothers suit muttered, "Should have called the cops right away, but burning it, that was the right move." Aaron's phone buzzed again in his pocket, insistently this time. His board meeting reminder. He ignored it, but the sound caught Philip's attention. "Turn that off," Philip barked. "Your accomplices can wait." The live stream counter shot past 650 viewers. Comments filled the screen faster than the blonde woman could read. He literally torched it. "Best manager ever. Scammer owned." Philip basked in the attention. He straightened his tie, smoothed his hair, and addressed the cameras. "This is why we have strict security protocols, to protect hard-working Americans from criminals like this man right here." Sandra's eyes flicked again to Aaron. Something about his posture, the calm way he sat despite the humiliation, made her uneasy. His hoodie might have been plain, but the shoes on his feet were Italian leather, not cheap knockoffs. His watch glinted briefly under the fluorescent lights, a detail most people missed. But Philip didn't notice, he was too busy playing to his audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, look at this pile of ashes. That's fraud, destroyed before your very eyes." Aaron let the guards guide him to a chair by the window. He lowered himself slowly, his movements deliberate, his expression unreadable. He glanced once more at the clock. 2:55 p.m. Inside, anger coiled like a spring. He thought about standing, shouting, demanding his dignity. But he also thought about the meeting he couldn't miss, the evidence he still had, and the thousands of eyes now watching. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to breathe evenly. "Not yet," he told himself. "Not here, not like this." Philip's voice rang out again, dramatic and smug. "This is what happens when you try to fool us. We protect our community. We don't let criminals walk away." The Chanel woman called out again from across the room. "Absolutely brilliant, Philip. You should run for mayor." Aaron's lips pressed together. He looked down at the scattered ashes of his check, the fragments clinging to his sneakers. Then he lifted his gaze back to Philip, his eyes steady, almost amused, as if he knew something no one else did. The clock ticked louder in his mind. 2:57 p.m. 3 minutes to go. The lobby kept filling. The line at the tellers slowed to a crawl, because people turned their bodies toward the scene and lifted their phones. The air was warm and noisy, and the smell of burned paper still hung near the floor. "Everyone step back," the lead guard said. His name tag read Tom Alvarez. He placed one hand near his radio and kept the other open in front of his chest. "Give us space." The blonde woman with the live stream held her phone higher. "We're at 800 now," she whispered to the camera. "He burned a $2 million check. Manager says it was fake." She shifted to frame Philip and Aaron in one shot, because the angle mattered to her audience. Philip turned slightly toward the phones and straightened his tie again. "This branch does not tolerate fraud," he said. He didn't raise his voice much, but he spoke from his chest so it carried. "We act immediately because delay invites risk." Aaron kept his seat by the window. He placed both hands on his knees so no one would think he was reaching for anything, and he kept his breathing slow because his heartbeat was up. He studied Philip's face and the hard lines around his mouth, and he looked at Tom's stance and the guard's careful position between them. He did not look at the crowd for long because the stares were sharp and steady. Sandra moved closer to Philip and lowered her voice. "We need to preserve what's left of the check," she said. "Evidence rules are clear. We should call compliance." Philip didn't look at her. "There is no evidence to preserve," he said. "It was counterfeit. I removed it from circulation." "It still matters," Sandra insisted. "Even if it's counterfeit, we document. We bag it. We log it." "Back to your station, Sandra," he said. "I have it under control." A man in a navy suit stepped from the line and spoke to no one in particular. "Finally a bank with a spine," he said. "If a check looks off, you shut it down. End of story." Aaron raised his eyes for a second. "It wasn't off," he said. His tone was even and quiet. "You didn't look long enough to know." "Sir," Tom warned. "Let's keep it calm." Aaron nodded and looked back at the clock. 2:56 p.m. He felt the old anger rise again because of the words their kind that he had heard a few minutes earlier from the woman in Chanel. He could still hear the soft clap of her hands. He pressed his tongue to the roof of his mouth to hold back the first words that came to him, because the words wouldn't help him now and would only add heat to the room. The teenager with purple hair finished editing her clip. "It's up," she said to her friend. "TikTok is already pushing it. Look at the comments." She leaned against the ATM and scrolled. "They're saying he taught a lesson." Sandra looked down at Aaron's shoes again and then at his watch. She knew brands because she handled enough customers to recognize good leather and a clean dial. She also noticed the way Aaron sat, not slouched, not rigid, but steady, which didn't match a person who just tried to run a fraud. She shifted her attention back to Philip and decided to try one more time. "Philip, we have a verification desk," she said. "We scan the check. We call the issuing department. We pull the account profile. We can do it in 10 minutes. Philip smiled for the phones. "We already verified," he said. "That's what you just watched." "That's not the process," Sandra said. She kept her voice level because she didn't want to embarrass him on camera, and she also didn't want the staff to think she had lost control. "We didn't call anyone." "Enough," he said under his breath, still watching the lenses. A second guard arrived from the back, breathing a little hard from the walk. He took position to Tom's right. "What do we have?" he asked. "Possible fraud," Tom said. "Manager destroyed the item. We're waiting on police." The older woman in Chanel stood and walked closer, staying just outside the line Tom had set. "Officer, that man brought in a ridiculous check," she said, pointing at Aaron. "The manager did the right thing. It would have ended up hurting honest customers." Aaron looked at her face, not long, just long enough to see the certainty there. He wondered how many times she had said words like that in other rooms. He felt heat in his chest again, and he caught himself clenching his jaw. He loosened it because he needed to speak in a clear voice when the time came. His phone buzzed once more, and this time it vibrated against his thigh with a longer pulse. He knew the board assistant had started the call. He could picture the conference room, the long table, and the chairs that were probably still empty at 2:58 p.m. because the directors kept tight schedules and joined right at the hour. Philip stepped closer to Aaron and leaned down a fraction. "You will not take that call," he said. "You will sit there and wait." Aaron looked up at him. "I will take a call at 3, he said. "Because it concerns this institution." "Don't try to bluff," Philip said. "You won't like how this ends." "Then follow your own rules," Aaron said. "Bag the ashes. Call compliance. Return my wallet." The live stream counter rolled past 1,000. The blonde read comments aloud because her viewers asked her to. "They want to hear the manager again," she said. "Say something about stopping fraud." Philip squared his shoulders and faced the camera. "This bank stands for order," he said. "We refuse to be a doorway for crime. When something looks wrong, we act." A man in a zip-up jacket near the door added, "He should have called the police first, but burning it sends the message." "I respect it." Sandra felt her stomach tighten. She didn't like the word message when it came to customer property, even if she doubted the check at first sight. She also didn't like how the crowd had moved past facts into performance. She took 2 steps toward Tom. "Tom," she said quietly, "we need to separate the manager from the crowd. And we should secure the ashes. I can get gloves and an evidence bag." Tom nodded, grateful for something practical. "Do it," he said. She hurried to the side office, found a small kit they used for counterfeit bills, and returned with a pair of gloves and a sealable bag. She crouched and began gathering what she could without smearing it. Her hands shook a little because dozens of phones were now pointed at her. Philip noticed and frowned. "What are you doing?" "Following policy," Sandra said. "If the police ask, we need chain of custody." The Chanel woman made a face. "It was fake," she said. "Why waste time?" "Because procedures protect everyone," Sandra said. "Including you." Aaron watched Sandra work. He let out a slow breath because someone in the room had finally placed process over applause. He didn't smile, but some of the pressure in his chest eased. A new voice entered from the main doors. "What's going on?" Linda Park asked. She wore a tailored suit and carried a leather briefcase. She looked first at the crowd, then at the ashes, and finally at Aaron. Her expression shifted from confusion to concern in a steady line. Philip turned, saw her professional look, and spoke quickly. "We stopped a fraud, Miss Park," he said. "The item has been destroyed." Linda's eyebrows rose. "Destroyed?" she asked. "Who authorized that?" "I did," Philip said. "It was necessary." "Show me the documentation," Linda said. "And return the customer's wallet." Philip's jaw flexed. "The wallet is evidence," he said. "Not if you took it from his pocket," Linda replied. "You log what you examine, and you don't seize property without cause." Tom cleared his throat and stepped slightly toward Philip. "We can hold the area and wait for officers," he said. "No one needs to escalate." Philip's eyes flicked to the phones again. He didn't want to back down on camera, and he didn't want to lose the room. He kept his chin high, but he felt the control slipping because the conversation had moved from his talking points to things he couldn't spin. The blonde read more comments. "They're split now," she said. "Some want to know why the bank burned it. Some say they should have checked first." Aaron checked the clock again. 2:59 p.m. His chest lifted and fell once with a long breath. He pictured the first words he would say in 1 minute, and he made sure his voice was ready. Philip faced him again. "Last chance to admit it," he said. "Say the check was fake, and we'll call it a misunderstanding." Aaron held his gaze. "No," he said. "It was valid." The room went quieter because people sensed a shift. Sandra sealed the evidence bag and wrote the time on the label. Tom adjusted his stance and looked toward the doors because the police would arrive soon. Linda moved to the side of the counter so she could see both men at once. The digital clock changed. The numbers rolled to 3 p.m. Aaron reached slowly into his jacket. Tom tensed, but Aaron lifted only a white business card and placed it on the counter in front of him. He didn't say anything yet, because he would speak on his call in the next breath, and because the room needed 1 clean second of silence before the next part began. The second of silence after the business card felt heavy because the lobby had been loud for several minutes and people weren't used to quiet here. Phones stayed up. The guards held their places. Sandra stood with the sealed evidence bag in her hands and waited for Philip to say something. Philip glanced at the card on the counter and gave a short laugh. "Cute," he said. "You can buy those online." Aaron didn't touch the card. "I said I'd take a call at 3, he replied. His voice was steady, and it sounded different now because he was done asking for permission. "This call is about bank operations." Tom shifted his weight and spoke to both men. "Keep your hands visible, gentlemen, and keep your tone down. We can sort this out without trouble." Linda stepped closer to the counter, careful not to crowd Tom. "Mr. Brooks," she said. "Who are you calling at 3? "The board assistant," Aaron said. "There's an emergency session." He looked at the digital clock across the lobby. "Starting now." Philip rolled his eyes and faced the nearest phone. "He's pretending to be important," he said to the live stream. "Seen it 100 times." Aaron slid his phone from his pocket in one slow motion because he knew any quick move would light up the room again. He tapped once and brought the device to his ear. "I'm here," he said. "Put me through." His breathing was even but deliberate, and he pressed his heel to the floor to ground himself because anger still wanted more space in his chest than he could give it. Tom watched the call and measured two things at once, Aaron's calm and the crowd's patience. "Sir," he said quietly to Aaron. "Don't stand." "I won't," Aaron said. From the teller line, the blonde read aloud more comments because her viewers kept asking for it. "Okay. They want to know who this guy thinks he is," she said. "They also want the manager to explain why he burned the check instead of calling someone first." Sandra looked down at her hands and then up again. "Philip," she said. "I've bagged the ashes, we should log them. And we need to return the wallet now. We can note the card list without holding the whole thing. It's evidence." Philip snapped. "Only if we can say why we're holding it," Linda said. "And right now we can't." Aaron lowered his phone for a second. "Mr. Harrington," he said. "You took it from my pocket in front of witnesses. Either return it to me or hand it to the guard to log. Don't keep it in your jacket." Philip straightened. His pride kicked first because the cameras were on. "I'll hold it until officers arrive," he said. "Chain of custody." "Chain of custody means you don't keep it on your person," Linda replied. "Tom, you should secure it." Tom looked at Philip. "I can log it," he said. Open-palmed. "Your call." Philip hesitated because giving up the wallet on camera felt like losing ground. He exhaled through his nose and pulled it out. He didn't hand it to Aaron. He handed it to Tom. "Fine," he said. "Log it." Tom placed the wallet in an evidence envelope and wrote the time and location. He kept his pen on the line another second to make sure his hand didn't shake. Aaron raised the phone again. "Yes," he said, into the receiver. "I'm at Heritage Trust downtown. Put me on as chair." He listened. "We'll start with a customer service incident." He listened again and nodded once. The crowd shifted because the word sounded official and also because the word chair landed harder than they expected. The teenager with purple hair stopped scrolling and looked up. Philip tried to retake the room. "People will say anything into a phone," he told the cameras. "Criminals perform when they're cornered." Aaron looked at him and then spoke back into the phone because he refused to argue now. "Yes, I'll use the tablet on site," he said. "Send the access prompt." He ended the call and reached slowly into his inside pocket. Tom's shoulders rose half an inch. "Mr. Brooks," he said. "Tell me what you're doing." "I'm taking out a tablet," Aaron replied. "I'm not standing. I'm not moving fast." He pulled the device free with both hands in view and set it on the counter. He pressed the power button and waited for the corporate login screen to load. His jaw unclenched a fraction because he had decided his line. He would present, not argue, and that choice cooled the heat behind his eyes. Philip leaned forward with a thin smile. "A tablet doesn't make you somebody. Neither does a loud voice," Aaron said. He touched the first field and typed. His hands were steady because he had practiced staying steady for years in rooms where people decided they understood him after one look. Sandra moved to the other side of the counter so she could see the screen. She didn't speak. She wanted facts and a clear picture, and she wanted to prepare an incident report that would hold up later. Linda positioned herself between the crowd and the counter so she could manage any sudden movement. She kept her voice low and even. "Everyone stay where you are," she said. "We will let the system tell us who is who." The login screen showed the institution's blue banner and the words restricted access. Aaron entered his username and paused. For a moment he felt the urge to look at the crowd and say something satisfactory and sharp because part of him wanted release, and release would be easy right now. He felt the anger pull at his throat. He let the breath out instead and kept his eyes on the device. Philip crossed his arms. "If you were real," he said, "you would have shown that first." "I don't need to convince you," Aaron said. "I need to follow procedure." The blonde angled her phone to catch the screen. "I can't show too much," she told her audience. "But he's logging into something that looks official." She read the chat. "They're asking if it's a fake app." Aaron entered his password and waited. The tablet prompted for a code. He looked up at Tom. "My phone will ping for verification," he said. "I'm going to take it out again." Tom nodded once. "Slow please." Aaron lifted the phone and caught the push notification. He tapped approve and set the phone back down, screen up, so Tom could see the green check. The tablet advanced to a second factor prompt and asked for a physical token. Aaron reached into the side pocket of his jacket and brought out a small key device attached to a short cord. He placed it on the counter, not in his hand, and slid it toward Tom so everyone could see it first. Tom stared at it because he had seen versions before when bank staff issued them to managers. He looked at Philip. Philip shrugged, but his mouth tightened at the corners. "Could be anything," he said. "It's a token," Sandra said quietly. Aaron plugged the token into the tablet. The system chirped once and advanced to a profile screen with a blank silhouette and a loading spinner. He kept his face neutral because he knew the next screen would say more than anything he could say, and because he didn't want to look like he was enjoying any of this. The Chanel woman folded her arms and frowned. "Why are we going through all this?" she asked. He tried to pass a fake item. "Because we don't judge by looks," Linda said, still watching the screen. "We check, we document, we answer for what we do." The spinner turned. Aaron listened to the whir of the HVAC and the murmur of the crowd, and he took another breath to keep his voice available, not trapped under the weight of anger. He thought briefly of times he had lost his temper when he was younger, and how those moments had given other people exactly what they wanted to see. He wasn't giving that today. Philip leaned closer to the tablet, careful not to touch it. "This is a waste," he said. "Officers will be here any minute." "Then let them see this too," Aaron said. The profile screen snapped into place with the bank seal at the top and the heading Board Access Portal. Below it the fields populated line by line, but the name bar stayed blurred because of an automatic privacy setting until the final verification completed. The progress bar crawled the last few pixels. Aaron kept his hands off the device while it worked. Tom watched the door again and then the screen. He didn't say it, but he felt the room tilt towards something different, and he prepared to speak clearly when it did, because his job was to keep people safe and to help the facts come out in an orderly way. The blonde whispered to her phone. "We're at 1200, she said. "They're saying this is about to get good." Sandra looked at Philip. "If this confirms who he is," she said, "we're going to need to write down everything that's happened in exact order." Philip didn't answer. He pressed his lips together and focused on the spin of the last loading circle because he needed it to stop on his side. Aaron's phone buzzed one more time with a short tone from the board assistant. He didn't answer it now. He waited for the screen to finish. His breathing stayed measured, and his shoulders stayed level, and his anger stayed where he put it. The loading bar reached the end and held for a beat as if the system was checking the room as well. The next second would say everything. The lobby went silent when the screen cleared. The seal of Heritage Trust Financial glowed at the top of the tablet, and the words Board Access Portal appeared in bold. A line under it resolved Aaron Brooks, Chairman and CEO, Brooks Capital Holdings. Another line followed, Principal Shareholder, Heritage Trust Financial Group. Sandra's breath caught. Tom didn't move. Even the chatter from the crowd stilled for a moment. Philip blinked and gave a short, dismissive laugh. "That's a fake overlay. Anybody with some code can make one." Aaron didn't flinch. He kept both hands resting on the counter. "You saw the two-factor code pass. You saw the token. Scan it if you doubt it." Tom raised his brows, then picked up the small hardware token Aaron had slid across. He turned it over in his hand, reading the engraved numbers. "Dispatch, verify token serial ending in 79, he said into his radio. His voice was steady but his shoulders tightened. The blonde filming whispered into her phone, her voice trembling. "Guys, it says chairman. Chairman of the board." Her viewer count spiked. The chat window raced too fast to read. The teenager near the ATM lowered her phone a little. "Wait, is this real?" Linda Park stepped closer, her eyes sharp. "Mr. Harrington," she said, "we need to stop guessing for the crowd and start following the manual." Philip's jaw tightened. Manuals don't apply to con men. He could have stolen credentials. Sandra spoke for the first time with conviction. "He used a bank-issued token, Philip." The system prompted him. "You saw it. This isn't a trick app." Philip turned on her. "You'll address me as Mr. Harrington in front of customers." "I'll address the facts," Sandra shot back. Tom's radio crackled. A voice confirmed, token is active. Assigned to board chair Aaron Brooks. Verification complete. Tom exhaled and set the token gently back on the counter. He looked at Philip. The token's valid. We need to de-escalate. The crowd erupted in low whispers. Several phones zoomed in on Philip's face now, not Aaron's. Aaron tapped another link on the portal. The screen showed emergency session, active. A small green indicator pulsed. He rotated the tablet just enough so cameras could see the header, not the details. Philip's voice cracked. You will not trick us with graphics. Aaron ignored him. Board assistant, he said into the mic. I'm on site. Log my presence. This is now a customer service incident. A woman's voice came through the speaker, calm and professional. Yes, Mr. Brooks. Attendance noted. Counsel is joining. The chat on the blonde's live stream exploded. She whispered into the phone, it's talking back. They're on a real call. Sandra pressed her lips together. Her doubts had vanished. She pulled a pen and started a detailed log. Time evidence bag sealed, wallet transferred, token verified. Her handwriting shook, but her determination steadied. Linda folded her arms. This has gone far enough, she said, her voice pitched for both Philip and the crowd. The check should have been logged, not burned. The wallet should never have been seized, and the board chair of this institution just confirmed his identity. Philip's face flushed red. He looked at the phones, then at Aaron, then back at Sandra, searching for ground. If he were really who he says, he wouldn't walk in here dressed like that. He'd have a team, not a hoodie. Aaron's eyes met his. Or maybe I came as a customer. Because every customer deserves respect, not just the ones in suits. That line landed hard. A murmur ran through the crowd. The Chanel woman who had clapped earlier lowered her gaze. The teenager with purple hair whispered, that hit different. Tom kept his stance steady. Mr. Harrington, he said carefully. We'll wait for officers. In the meantime, please refrain from commentary. Philip snapped, you can't order me. His words cut off when the radio confirmed officers were 2 minutes away. Aaron adjusted his watch, checked the time, 3:02 p.m., then placed his business card flat beside the tablet. The bold print chairman and CEO stared up at everyone. He looked at the crowd, his voice calm but firm. That check you burned wasn't counterfeit. It was my quarterly dividend. And you destroyed it in front of witnesses. The sentence hung heavy. The live stream audience crossed 1,500. Comments flooded. Oh my God, plot twist. He owns the bank. Manager is finished. Philip's voice cracked again. That can't be true. You're lying. Then call compliance right now, Aaron said. Call the number. Ask them who I am. Silence. No one moved. Linda's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked straight at Philip. Regional Director Vaughn is on the line. She wants immediate updates. The tension in the lobby thickened. For the first time, Philip didn't rush to the cameras. He swallowed hard, wiped sweat from his brow, and looked at the ashes sealed in Sandra's evidence bag. Aaron leaned slightly forward. You burned over $2 million of my money because you judged me by my clothes. And you did it proudly, on camera. The blonde's live stream spiked past 2,000 viewers. She whispered, this is insane. He's the actual owner. Sandra finished her notes and set down the pen. Her voice was quiet but clear. This incident just became corporate history. The glass doors opened. 2 officers entered, scanning the tense lobby. Tom straightened, ready to brief them. Aaron sat back in his chair. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The shock had landed. The truth was out. And the man who had set fire to his worth now stood frozen in the very ashes of his mistake. The conference room door closed behind them. Phones and whispers in the lobby softened into a dull hum beyond the glass. Inside, the air felt tighter, as if the walls themselves were waiting. Aaron placed the tablet in the center of the table. The banner board session, active, glowed steady on the screen. He rested his hands flat on the wood, calm but ready. Sandra opened a folder, pen in hand. Linda sat beside the door with her briefcase angled against the wall. Tom stood guard at the doorway, one shoulder squared toward the lobby. Jennifer Vaughn's voice came through the speaker. We are recording. Compliance and legal are connected by audio. Officers, you may record as well. The officer at the door, a woman in her late 30s with her hair pinned tight, gave a single nod. We're rolling. She flipped open a notebook. Aaron's voice cut the silence first. For the record, I entered at 2:46 p.m. presented a check. Manager declared it counterfeit without verification. He lit it on fire in the lobby. He took my wallet. Security logged it at 2:59. Token verified at 3:01. Officers arrived at 3:03. Sandra read from her notes. Ashes collected and bagged at 2:58. Wallet sealed and logged. Chain of custody form in progress. She slid a copy across to the officer, her handwriting tight but legible. Jennifer said, "Thank you. We'll keep amounts off this channel. Now we need Mr. Harrington's account." Tom opened the door and motioned. Philip entered with an officer beside him. He didn't sit right away. He glanced once at the tablet, jaw tight, then dropped into the chair as if pushed. "Mr. Harrington," Jennifer said, her tone sharp but not raised, "walk us through your actions from the moment the item was presented." Philip took a breath. Man comes in wearing a hoodie, jeans, looking out of place. He drops a check for more money than most people see in a lifetime. The paper weight was off. Ink looked flat. Signature didn't match. "I've seen fraud before. I knew it." "Did you scan the check?" Jennifer asked. "No," Philip said. "Did you call verification?" "No, didn't need to. It was obvious." "Did you preserve the instrument?" Philip shifted. "I destroyed it, right there. To keep him from stalling or handing it off." The officer's pen scratched. She asked flatly, "Destroyed? How?" "With a lighter," Philip muttered. Silence. Even Philip heard how weak it sounded. Linda leaned forward. "Policy is explicit. Suspect items are secured, sealed and logged, never destroyed. You chose theater." Philip snapped. "I chose speed. Fraud moves fast. And procedure is faster when followed," Sandra said. "You didn't even try." Philip glared at her. "You're my assistant. You're supposed to back me." Sandra's grip tightened on her pen. "I'm supposed to back the rules," the officer asked. "Did you take Mr. Brooks's wallet?" "Yes," Philip admitted, "with his consent." "No, did you log it?" "I intended to." Aaron finally spoke again, his voice low steady. "You didn't log it. You waved it like a trophy." Philip's head jerked up. "I'm not a racist, don't twist this into that." Aaron held his gaze, unflinching. "I didn't call you that. I called you reckless." Jennifer cut in. "Mr. Harrington, enough deflection. You torched a negotiable instrument on the lobby floor and seized property without authority. Both are violations. Both have consequences." The officer closed her notebook and looked at Philip directly. "From where I sit, you're lucky this isn't already a criminal charge. But HR and compliance will decide employment. We'll file our report either way." Philip exhaled hard through his nose. Sweat dotted his temple. "So what, you'll fire me? That's it?" Aaron leaned in, elbows off the table, voice calm but hard. "You're not walking out untouched, but you have a choice." Jennifer said, "Mr. Brooks, please outline." Aaron didn't hesitate. He had thought through every word. "Option 1, you apologize. To me, to staff, to the customers you humiliated, and to the thousands who watched online. You accept immediate demotion from branch manager to assistant operations associate, with pay cut. You attend mandatory training, bias, de-escalation, evidence handling. 300 hours of community service at the Southside Financial Learning Center. And you reimburse administrative costs for the replacement of the destroyed check." Philip's eyes widened. "That's humiliating." Aaron's voice didn't waver. So was lighting $2 million on fire. Jennifer continued smoothly. "Option 2, termination for cause, referral to state banking regulators for willful destruction of a negotiable instrument, referral to prosecutors for unlawful seizure of property, loss of pension eligibility, end of your banking career. The incident is already public. Evidence is everywhere." The officer folded her arms. "Those are your paths. Neither is pretty. Choose." Philip's breathing quickened. He looked at Aaron, then Sandra, then the glass wall where Tom stood steady as ever. His pride clawed at him, screaming to fight. But reality pressed harder. He swallowed. "You're forcing me." "No," Aaron said. "You forced yourself when you lit that match." The clock ticked past 3:10. Aaron said evenly, "You have 60 seconds. Then we move forward without your input." The officer counted down in her notes. Philip's eyes darted to the glass, to the shadow of the lobby crowd beyond. His shoulders sagged. Option 1, he said finally, voice hoarse. I'll apologize. Jennifer didn't pause. Good, we'll process demotion paperwork immediately. But apology comes first in the lobby before those who watched. Philip's mouth twitched. Now, Aaron said. They all rose. The officer opened the door. Phones rose again as the group stepped into the lobby. Linda raised her hand. Quiet please, Mr. Harrington has a statement. Philip stood in the center of the marble floor. His voice cracked at first, then steadied. My name is Philip Harrington. Was the branch manager here. I declared a customer's check counterfeit without following procedure. I destroyed it in this lobby. I seized his wallet without cause. I judged him by appearance instead of process. I was wrong. No one clapped. No one cheered. The silence weighed heavier than any boos. He continued, forcing the words out. To Mr. Brooks, to my staff, to the customers here, and to everyone watching online, I apologize. I accept demotion, training and service hours. I will follow the rules I ignored today. Aaron stepped forward, his voice carried, calm but firm. Thank you for saying it. But remember, this isn't about me alone. Today you taught a room to cheer for humiliation. Tomorrow you'll teach rooms to respect process. The crowd murmured. The blonde lowered her phone. The Chanel woman who had cheered earlier whispered, I was wrong too, and quietly returned to the teller line. Aaron turned to the room. This bank will replace what was destroyed, but we will also replace something more important, the culture that let this happen. Procedure will be followed. Dignity will be respected. If you see otherwise, you tell me. Phones caught his words. The live stream comments shifted. Real leadership. This is how you fix it. Plot twist justice. Sandra took the evidence bag and held it tight against her chest. Linda directed staff back to work. Tom nodded once at Aaron, steady as ever. Back in the conference room, HR joined the call. A short clipped voice read the demotion order. Linda printed it, slid it to Philip. His hand shook as he signed. Next came Aaron's affidavit of destruction. He signed without hesitation. Sandra and Tom co-signed as witnesses. Jennifer's voice wrapped the session. Mr. Harrington, effective immediately, you are reassigned as Assistant Operations Associate. Miss Lee, you are acting lead until interim management arrives. Officers, thank you for your report. This session is adjourned. The tablet dimmed. The weight in the room shifted. Philip handed over his branch keys. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply looked down at the floor as if searching for the ashes he had left behind. Aaron stood. He pocketed the token, slid the business card back into his wallet, and walked toward the lobby. The line at the teller counter had reformed. The sound of printers hummed again. Customers whispered but returned to business. Aaron stopped at the spot where the marble still showed a faint smear from the fire. He let his eyes rest there for a moment, not to gloat, not to burn, but to remember. Then he turned toward the door. The boy in the red jacket tugged his mother's hand. Is he the boss? He whispered. Aaron gave the boy a small nod before stepping outside. The air felt different, not lighter, because nothing this ugly ever feels light, but clearer. Consequences had been spoken. Terms had been set, and for once the institution had chosen process over performance. The lobby was quieter now. Customers stayed, but the shouting was gone. Phones were still up, though most pointed lower, catching the aftermath rather than chaos. Tom held his position at the entrance, eyes sweeping but calm. Sandra gathered a few staff near the counter. Aaron stayed close, the tablet face down on the desk. Linda spoke first. 10 minutes. We need rules everyone can use right away. Floor stays open. Sandra pulled her pad. I'll take notes. Aaron straightened. 5 moves, simple and forcible. Number 1, he said. Every customer gets a greeting within 30 seconds. Eye contact, acknowledgement, even if you're busy. A quick I'll be with you soon is enough. People lose patience when they feel invisible. We won't let that happen again. Hannah, a senior teller, asked carefully, and when the line's out the door, then someone at the end of the counter scans the room and calls status. Aaron said, 2 sentences, we see you, we're moving. Quick questions, info desk. That's enough to cool the room. Sandra jotted it down. Number 2, Linda added, Evidence handling. No burning, no commentary. If an item looks suspect, it's sealed and logged. Then you step into a side room and call verification. Tom covers the doorway. Staff narrates steps so the customer knows what's happening. Malik, operations rep, asked, and if the customer tries to stir the crowd, then we lower the temperature. Aaron said, you explain verification takes 5 to 10 minutes. Here's a chair. You don't feed the fire. Number 3, Aaron continued. Recording. Lobby already has cameras. We'll add audio at service points. It's for coaching and proof, not punishment. If patterns show sharp tone, we fix it. If someone shows patience, we note it in reviews. Hannah frowned. So it's not a trap, it's support, Aaron said plainly. Number 4, Linda said. Training. Quarterly refreshers, bias, de-escalation, evidence handling. Short practical blocks. Guest educators from the community. Not lectures, real cases. Sandra underlined. Short blocks. Aaron looked at Philip, who stood silently by the wall. You'll attend every session, he said. Not to speak, to listen. And you'll shadow 3 verification calls so you can narrate the process back. Philip's jaw twitched. Understood. Number 5, Aaron said. Customer voice. We'll place a feedback QR code at the counter. Comments go to Linda and me directly. People will complain at first, but the point is clear, they have a path. Sandra raised her pen. We'll pilot all 5 today. Greeting and verification start now. QR printed by end of day. Recording in 48 hours. Training this Friday. Linda nodded. Good, tight, real. Aaron leaned on the counter. His voice carried just enough for staff to feel it mattered. One more thing. A memorial. A small display, nothing theatrical. A photo of the sealed evidence bag with the date and the words, process over assumption. Customers will ask, staff will answer. Sandra wrote it down without hesitation. The group broke and moved back to their posts. Hannah greeted the next 3 customers in under 30 seconds. Each relaxed a little more than the last. Malik pulled a questionable check into the side room, explained each step, and the customer sat down quietly. Linda taped a fresh printed QR code to the counter. The first scan came from a postal worker who asked, does this really go anywhere? Aaron answered directly, to me, to regional. We'll read them all for a month. She scanned. Then I'll tell you when you do it right too. Not just wrong. Sandra smiled faintly. That's what we want. Philip lingered near the back desk, quiet. He finally said, I'll draft a checklist for verification. Clear steps. Bold the narrate to customer's part. Sandra looked at him. Do it. That'll be your first Saturday assignment. Tom approached Aaron. Rumor mill started. Couple people asked for selfies. I shut it down. Aaron gave a small nod. Good. This is a bank, not a show. At 3:45, Linda called a quick check-in. Broken pieces. Hannah raised one. If I'm on a verification call, I can't greet. Then nearest teller picks it up. Sandra said. We'll set a hand signal. Point a pen at the ceiling means you're tied up. The next person scans the room. Works, Hannah said. Aaron listened, arms folded but relaxed. He wanted the fixes to belong to them, not to him alone. He checked his watch. 4 o'clock debrief with the board was coming. He'd need 3 sentences: what went wrong, what they changed, and what tomorrow looked like. He glanced once more at the faint smear on the marble where the ashes had been. A cleaner had buffed most of it away, but he didn't need the stain to remind him. The people here would carry the memory better than stone. The teller bell chimed. Another customer walked in. Hannah looked up, smiled, and said, Welcome, we'll be right with you. The customer nodded, calm. Aaron turned toward the side room at 3:59. The board assistant's voice came through the tablet. Board session is ready. He pressed connect. So are we, he said. Steady. The branch kept moving. The Southside Financial Learning Center opened at 8:45 a.m. on Saturdays. The hall smelled like coffee and printer paper. Flyers on a corkboard listed free tax prep, credit repair, and small business classes. Philip Harrington arrived at 8:35, 10 minutes early, holding a thin stack of worksheets and a legal pad. His steps were careful, like he was trying not to interrupt a room that didn't belong to him. Morning, said Mrs. Johnson, the director, a short woman with gray hair and a steady voice. You're on room 3, Rodriguez family. Small business loan denial. They brought paperwork. Yes, ma'am, Philip said. He still felt the weight of the first Saturday when he had walked in here angry and defensive, that had faded into something smaller and harder, shame that wouldn't leave and a duty that kept him coming back. He set 2 pens, a calculator, and a box of tissues on the table because someone always needed them. At 8:58, Maria Rodriguez and her husband Luis stepped in with a manila folder and a nervous energy that made them speak a little too fast. Good morning, Philip said, standing. I'm Philip, thank you for coming in on a Saturday. Maria nodded but didn't sit yet. We got denied yesterday, she said. They said our debt to income was too high. They didn't explain it. We've paid every bill for years. We're trying to open a second food truck. I'm sorry for the way it was handled, Philip said. He gestured to the chairs. Let's go through the numbers together. We'll figure out what happened and what can change. They sat. Maria placed pay stubs, bank statements and a draft business plan on the table. Philip kept his face neutral because he didn't want his expression to push them into shame or false hope. He checked the time, 9:02, and began. First, I'm going to list your income and your fixed debts, he said. Then we'll compare that to the lender's requirement. If we see a gap, we'll look for ways to close it. I'll explain every step. Maria exhaled through her nose and nodded. Okay. Luis watched Philip's hands as he wrote. Philip slowed just enough to make the math visible. He talked while he wrote because silence felt like judgment here. Your combined monthly income is $7,800 before taxes, he said. Auto loans are $480 and $260. Student loan is $210. Credit cards minimums total $140. Rent is $1,400. I'm leaving utilities and groceries out for this ratio because lenders look at fixed debts against gross income. The lender's limit was 43% for this product. You're at 44.9. Luis frowned. So we missed it by 2%. Just under 2, Philip said. That means you're close. It doesn't mean you're irresponsible. It means we need to shift something small so the numbers clear the bar. Maria's shoulders dropped a fraction. They didn't explain it like that, she said. They made it sound like we were buried. They shouldn't have, Philip said. He pushed that sentence out before his old reflex. Defend the branch could ruin this room. They should have explained and given you options. He turned a page. 2 paths, he said. We can apply for a product with a higher limit and a slightly higher interest rate, short-term to get the second truck on the road, or we can fix the ratio. Paying down $2,000 on the highest interest card would drop you below 43 in 60 days if you keep all other spending steady. Maria bit her lip. 60 days means missing the spring festivals, she said. That's our best season. Then we look at the first path, Philip said, but we won't let you set fire to your future to win March. We'll map cash flow month by month. He glanced at the box of tissues and then back at the couple because Maria's eyes had gone wet. She wiped them with the heel of her hand. No one has explained it this clean, she said. Yesterday it felt like they were pushing us out the door. Philip felt heat rise in his neck, the same heat from the lobby 6 months ago. He forced himself to stay in this room and not run back into that one. I'm sorry, he said again. You deserved better. He pulled out a simple worksheet. We'll model your second truck on conservative numbers, he said. Not dreams, not fear. Monday through Friday lunch, Saturday events, 1 day off. We'll set fuel, food cost, insurance, permits and a repair reserve. You'll see if the higher rate product still nets a profit after debt service. If it does, we go there now with a plan to refinance in 12 months, not 5 years. Luis leaned forward. You're saying we can still do it, just carefully. Yes, Philip said. Carefully and clearly. They worked through the sheet for 20 minutes. Maria did the keypad on the calculator while Philip wrote. Luis called their current meat supplier to confirm a bulk price. They adjusted numbers twice. At 9:38, Philip set his pen down. With a higher rate product and this schedule, your net covers the payment and leaves a buffer, he said. It's not huge, but it's real. If you cut the credit card balance by $1,500 over 3 months, we can refinance in a year and drop your payment. Maria looked at him for a long second. You're the first bank person who's sat with us without making us feel stupid, she said. Thank you. Philip felt the words land harder than he expected. He nodded once, firm because his throat felt tight. "You're not stupid," he said. "You're running a business and raising a family. This is hard work." He turned to a fresh page. "Action list," he said. "I'll write you read it back. 1. Apply for the short-term product Monday morning. 2. Set aside $125 per week to the card with the highest rate. 3. Keep daily food costs under 34% of sales. 4. Send me weekly tallies for 3 weeks so we can catch problems early." Maria read each item out loud and checked them with her pencil. "We can do this," she said. "We just needed the path." Mrs. Johnson stepped in and tapped the doorframe. "Everything okay?" she asked. Philip looked up. "They're solid," he said. "We're building a 12-month plan with refinancing guardrails." Mrs. Johnson nodded. "Good. The Rivera family is at 10, she said. "They brought their lease. It's ugly. You'll need to translate the legalese." "I'll be ready," Philip said. Maria stood and extended her hand. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington." "Philip," he said, "email me your docs tonight. I'll queue the application and flag the file so a human looks at it, not just a system. And if anyone treats you like you're a bother, copy me and Mrs. Johnson." Luis shook his hand too. "We'll bring tacos when the second truck opens," he said. "Not free, full price. You paid in Saturdays." Philip let himself smile. "Deal." They left. The room was quiet again. He gathered the worksheets and filed a copy for the center because Mrs. Johnson insisted all counseling produce a paper trail. She walked back in with 2 coffee cups. "How's your Saturday penance feeling today?" she asked. "It's not penance," he said. He meant it. "It's repair." She studied his face. "You looked the part when you first walked in here. Tall, pressed suit, fast answers. Now you look like a person who can sit still." "I'm trying," he said. "Good," she said. "Because people can tell the difference." He checked his watch, 9:52, and pulled the Rivera file. He glanced at the photo on his phone of the small sign at the bank, "Process over assumption." He didn't need it to keep going, but it reminded him what these hours were for. Mrs. Johnson paused at the door one more time. "You'll miss a Saturday at some point," she said. "Life happens. Don't let it turn into 3. This place holds you as much as you hold it." "I'll be here," he said. At 10 sharp, the Riveras stepped in, worried and polite. Philip stood, offered seats and took a breath. He could feel the old impatience at the edges, urge to hurry, urge to impress, but he pushed it back because the work needed the quieter version of him. "Let's start with your lease," he said. "We'll take it line by line, and if something doesn't make sense you stop me and I'll say it another way. No one leaves confused." They nodded. He uncapped his pen. The room settled, and for the next hour, he did the thing he had failed to do in a bank lobby 6 months earlier. He treated people like people and let the rules do their work. The Southside Financial Learning Center sat in a squat brick building with a faded mural on its side wall. By 8:30 a.m., volunteers had already set out folding chairs, brewed coffee, and stacked pamphlets about credit repair and first-time home loans. The smell of paper and fresh coffee filled the air. Philip Harrington arrived 10 minutes early, carrying a slim binder and a cheap calculator. His posture was still stiff, as if the suit jacket he no longer wore clung to him in memory. He paused at the door, smoothed his shirt, and stepped inside. "Morning," said Mrs. Johnson, the director. Her voice carried the kind of authority that didn't need volume. "Room 3's yours. The Rodriguez family is waiting." Philip nodded. "Yes, ma'am." His throat tightened because every Saturday carried the same mix: embarrassment for being here under orders, and gratitude that he hadn't been thrown out of banking entirely. He entered room 3, set out pens, tissues, and worksheets. At 8:55, Maria and Luis Rodriguez walked in, a manila folder clasped between them. They looked tired but alert, like people who had been disappointed too many times but hadn't stopped trying. "Good morning," Philip said, standing. "I'm Philip. Thanks for meeting with me." Maria didn't sit right away. "We got denied yesterday," she said quickly. "The bank said our debt to income was too high. They didn't explain anything. We've never missed a payment. We're just trying to get another food truck." Philip gestured to the chairs. "Sit please, we'll go through it together. No rush, no jargon, just numbers and what they mean." They sat. Luis slid the folder across the table. Pay stubs, bank statements, and a draft business plan spilled out. Philip straightened the papers, his pulse quickening. 6 months ago he would have glanced once, assumed, and dismissed. Now he forced himself to slow down. Combined monthly income, he said, writing it down, $7,800 before taxes. Car loans $480 and $260. Student loan $210. Credit cards $140. Rent $1,400. For lenders, the formula is fixed debts divided by gross income. They wanted 43%. You're at 44.9. Luis leaned forward. So we're off by less than 2%. Exactly, Philip said. Close, not buried, but because it's above the limit, the system spit it back as a denial. It doesn't mean you're irresponsible, it means you need one adjustment. Maria exhaled hard and dropped into the chair fully. They didn't say it like that. They made us feel like fools. They shouldn't have, Philip said quickly. The words tasted heavy but right. You deserved an explanation. He turned to a new sheet. You've got 2 paths. Path 1, apply for a product with a slightly higher interest rate, short term. It'll let you launch the second truck now. Path 2, pay down $2,000 on your highest interest card. That drops you under the ratio in 60 days. But you'd miss the spring festivals. Maria's face fell. Those festivals are everything. If we wait, we lose our best season. Then path 1, Philip said, but with guardrails. We'll model conservative numbers, weekday lunches, Saturday events, 1 day off. If the cash flow holds after debt payments, it's viable, and we'll build a refinancing target at 12 months, not 5 years. Luis rubbed his hands together. So we can do it, but careful. Careful and clear, Philip said. For 20 minutes they worked. Maria tapped the calculator. Luis phoned their meat supplier for bulk prices. Philip wrote line after line, reading each aloud so nothing felt hidden. At 9:40, he laid down the pen. With this plan, you cover payments and still have a buffer. Not huge, but real. If you pay $125 a week toward that credit card, we can refinance in a year. Maria's eyes shone. She wiped them quickly. No one at the bank ever broke it down. Yesterday they just shook their heads and sent us away. Philip swallowed hard. He remembered the lobby, the ash, the pride that had wrecked him. I'm sorry, he said softly. It should never feel like that. He wrote an action list. 1. Apply Monday for the short-term product. 2. Set aside $125 weekly for card payoff. 3. Keep daily food costs under 34% of sales. 4. Send me weekly tallies for 3 weeks. Maria read it back, checking each line. We can do this, she said. We just needed the math. Mrs. Johnson poked her head in. How's it going? They're ready, Philip said. We've got a year plan with a refinance goal. Maria stood and extended her hand. Thank you, Philip. Email me your docs tonight, he said. I'll flag the file so someone looks at it, not just the system. And if anyone brushes you off, copy me and Mrs. Johnson. Luis shook his hand too. We'll bring tacos when the second truck rolls out. Not free, full price. You paid in Saturdays. Philip let himself smile. Deal. They left. The room went quiet again. Mrs. Johnson stepped in with 2 coffees. How's today feel? She asked. Philip looked at the worksheets, then at her. Less like penance, more like repair. She studied his face. When you first came in, you carried yourself like a man who needed everyone to see he was in charge. Now you sit still. People notice. I'm trying, he said. Good, she said. Keep showing up. The work does the rest. At 10 sharp, the Riveras came in with a messy lease. Philip welcomed them, pen ready. The old reflex to rush bubbled up, but he pressed it down. He slowed his words. Let's take this line by line, he said. If anything sounds confusing, stop me. I'll explain another way. No one leaves guessing. They nodded and he began again. The same man who once set fire to proof, now learning to build trust piece by piece, on quiet Saturdays on the south side. By the end of the first quarter, the changes at the downtown branch had rippled far beyond its marble floor. The lobby looked normal again, but the way people behaved inside was not. Customers noticed the greetings, the narrated verification calls, the calm explanations. Most didn't know why it had started, only that the bank felt different. On a Wednesday afternoon, Sandra logged in to the regional video call. Her notepad was full, check marks, questions and stories from the past 6 weeks. The screen filled with faces from 12 other branches. Jennifer Vaughn, the regional director, ran the session. "All right," Jennifer said, "we've piloted the dignity protocol downtown for 6 weeks. Sandra, give us the ground-level report." Sandra adjusted her headset. She had rehearsed, but she still felt her pulse. "Customer satisfaction surveys are up 32% compared to last quarter," she said. "Complaints about wait times dropped by half, not because lines are shorter but because staff communicate clearly." The QR code got 83 comments in the first month, 50 were positive, the rest flagged tone or lack of explanation, and we adjusted those quickly. Jennifer leaned closer. "What about staff buy-in?" "It was shaky at first," Sandra admitted. "People thought greetings and narration were forced, but then they saw customers respond. Last week a man who had been denied a loan months ago came back. He said, 'I almost didn't return, but I heard things changed.' He left with a clean explanation, and no anger. That convinced staff this isn't theater." Linda on the call from headquarters added, "Compliance flagged one case of mishandled evidence at another branch. Instead of denial, the manager called Sandra to ask how they bagged and narrated. That's the culture shift we want." Jennifer nodded. "Good. Numbers and stories both matter. We're expanding this protocol to every branch in the region over 90 days. Other regions will watch our rollout." Aaron joined the call late, his camera showing a simple office, not the corner suite. "I want to add something," he said. His tone was calm but carried weight. "The point is not just metrics, the point is to make respect standard, not optional. When you follow the protocol, you protect the bank legally and financially. But more important, you protect dignity. That has to be our bottom line too." A pause followed. Several managers nodded, some scribbled notes. One manager, a man in his 50s from Oak Park, asked bluntly, "Aaron's staff still complain this feels like surveillance. How do we balance that with morale?" Aaron looked directly at the camera. "Tell them this review isn't about punishment, it's about proof and coaching. When someone gets it right under pressure, we capture it. When someone slips, we catch it early and correct. If the review turns into a weapon, then we failed, and you call me if you see that happen." The manager nodded slowly. Jennifer closed the call. "Rollout begins Monday. I'll expect weekly updates. Thank you everyone." The screens blinked off one by one. Sandra sat back in her chair, letting out the breath she'd held. Aaron stayed on. "You carried that well," he said. She smiled faintly. "It still feels strange to be the one teaching others." "You earned it," he replied. "Leadership isn't about who talks loudest, it's about who steadies the room." Sandra looked down. She remembered the moment Philip had lit the check, the silence she had kept, and the shame afterward. She carried it still, but now it fueled her. That evening, Aaron stopped by the branch unannounced. He walked in wearing the same hoodie and jeans he had worn the day of the fire. Sandra spotted him immediately. "You know you cause a stir when you dress like that now," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's why I do it." She handed him the weekly report: complaints, compliments, training attendance. "We're holding steady," she said. He scanned it quickly, then looked around. The lobby buzzed but felt calm. Customers stood in line without edge in their voices. Staff moved with practiced rhythm. Aaron turned back to Sandra. "This is what it should have been all along," he said. For the first time since that December afternoon, she felt the branch was no longer haunted by smoke and ashes. It was defined by the rules they had built from them. 6 months later, the downtown branch felt like a different place. The lobby looked the same: polished floors, quiet printers, steady hum of customers, but the mood was changed. Staff greeted customers as soon as they walked in. Verification was handled in a side room without drama. The QR code by the counter had become part of the furniture, scanned a few times a day without fuss. Aaron walked in on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing the same gray hoodie and jeans he had worn the day Philip set his check on fire. He wanted to see how people reacted now, without announcement. Sandra noticed him first. She smiled but didn't break stride as she spoke to a customer. Hannah, the teller, lifted her head, made eye contact and said, "Welcome, we'll be right with you." The line moved calmly. No stares, no whispers, no panic. Tom approached, his posture relaxed. "You picked a slow hour," he said. "Feels almost normal, doesn't it?" "That's the point," Aaron replied. He looked around. Normal should mean respect. Sandra joined them at the counter. Once her customer walked away. "Numbers came in this morning. Complaint volume is at the lowest we've seen in 5 years, and customer satisfaction surveys are up across the board." Aaron nodded. "And staff?" She hesitated. "Some still think the protocols are heavy, but most say it makes their days easier. Less shouting, fewer escalations." "Easier is good," Aaron said. "Consistency is better." He stepped over to the memorial display. Behind the glass was the photograph of the evidence bag, the ashes of his check, labeled with the date and the words, "Process over assumption." Customers slowed when they passed, some reading the small paragraph printed beside it. A man in his 70s stopped and leaned on his cane. "That really happened here?" he asked. Sandra answered gently, "Yes sir, it did, and that's why the rules changed." The man looked at the display for a long moment, then nodded. "Good lesson." Philip walked out from the back room just then, carrying a stack of forms. His suit was gone. He wore a simple collared shirt, sleeves rolled up. He saw Aaron at the display, and stopped. "Mr. Brooks," Philip said quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd come back in person." "I wasn't sure either," Aaron admitted. He studied Philip's face, less rigid now, less defensive. "How are the Saturday sessions?" Philip shifted the forms in his hands. "Hard. Families bring stories I can't fix with math alone, but I listen, and I explain what I can. Mrs. Johnson makes sure I don't forget why I'm there." Aaron's tone softened, though his eyes stayed sharp. "Have you learned something you didn't expect?" Philip hesitated, then nodded. "That dignity isn't about handing out approvals or denials. It's about how people walk out, whether they feel seen." "I missed that before." Aaron accepted the answer with a small nod. "Then keep doing the hours, not because the contract says so, because the work is worth it." "Yes sir," Philip said. A mother with 2 children walked past the memorial display. One of the kids pointed. "Mom, what's that picture?" She crouched and read the words aloud. "It says process over assumption." She glanced at Aaron, not recognizing him. "It means you follow rules before judging people." The child nodded, satisfied. They moved on. Aaron turned to Sandra. "That's what matters. Not my name, not a headline, just a rule simple enough for a child to carry." Sandra folded her arms. "We'll keep carrying it here." Aaron checked his watch. A flight to Tokyo waited that evening, the ticket tucked in his pocket like any other business trip. But he stayed another few minutes, letting the sounds of the branch wash over him, the calm greetings, the clear explanations, the steady rhythm of ordinary work done right. He looked back at the display one last time. "They can burn a piece of paper," he said quietly, mostly to himself, "but they can't burn the worth behind it." Tom heard him, and gave a small nod. "Not anymore." Aaron walked toward the door. Staff kept serving customers. Phones stayed in pockets. The bank carried on like it should have all along. He stepped into the Chicago air, pulled his hood up against the breeze, and let himself feel something he hadn't since that December afternoon. Not anger, not humiliation, but pride, because the rules were no longer just his demand. They had become the branch's habit, and habits once formed, had a way of lasting. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.